This is 25, Steve. Have you been counting?
I have been,
Yeah.
and I told you today's the first day that I came in knowing. So imagine that. And from here on in, I've got a little trick. So,
Is it just to add one to every show we do the last time?
and put it on my calendar exactly.
Seems like I figured it out. I'm just gonna add one
I had a
every time we do a show.
major moment.
Yeah, that's
major
good.
moment.
I love that, man. I am super excited about Move the Needle today because I know all three people that are getting ready to come on this podcast. That doesn't always happen, and I always think like when you have a little bit of a history with folks, especially the kind of history that I have with Sandy, who you're going to meet here in just a second, with Janine, who you're going to meet in a little while, and with Romy, who you're going to meet in just a little while. I don't know. It always makes for a little bit more lively conversation.
Yes, well, I'm excited. Got to just say my hellos and spend a little bit of time pre-production, and can't wait to spend time with them all. I want to just thank our sponsors here, Craft 64, Sam and James. Again, if you see us here again, you'll be seeing us here in the future. This is going to be one of our home bases here in Old Town Scottsdale.
You just come for the pizza. Just tell them, I just say it like it is.
Well, I'll be here. I will be here. You're darn right. I haven't ate all day, so I save it up. And then, again, we might as well mention HomeSmart as well, corporate HomeSmart in Scottsdale, one of our partners as well. So we're thankful for them as well.
Beautiful. Well, let's jump in. You know, when you go to the website, you see that from the time she was a child, she's been searching for ways to create harmony and peace within herself and others. And I've had firsthand experience with Sandy and her practice at inLIGHTen Wellness. And so welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you, Matthew. It's so good to see you again,
it's great to see you, too. We're going to get into all things like regarding her journey and what she's doing right now. But I think we start there because I didn't know that about you. When I read that this morning, I was like, no wonder I vibe so well with her, because I feel like since I was a child, I've been searching for ways to create harmony and peace within myself and others. So where does that come from? Where does that stem from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's innate within me, right? It started when I was born, and then my childhood and my life just kind of contributed to making that even more apparent.
All right.
So not the best upbringing. There was a lot of turmoil, some, violence, abuse, alcoholism in my household, and so I was the one who was trying to make the peace, right? So I was trying to make everyone feel happy, safe, comfortable in an emotional way. My sister, she was the protector. She was the one to, help me out and make sure that I didn't get into trouble or anything. And so I was the one that was there to kind of pick up the pieces of the emotional wounding for all of us to kind of keep us connected.
Can you relate to any of that, Steve? Was your childhood, and were you like the mediator? Were you the peacemaker, or were you the one stirring up all the trouble?
No, I was, actually, interestingly, a little of both. I think that's where I became my peacemakers. I stirred it up and felt so guilty. No, but I'm the peacemaker of the family. The family always... people weren't getting along, I feel disrupted. I'm one of those. And so that's how you could identify yourself as the peacemaker, I guess. And so I can relate.
So this thing about I want to help people, I want to make the peace, is that what leads you to becoming a doctor?
Yeah, absolutely.
It does, okay.
Totally, yeah. I kind of initially actually was really interested in psychology, and so did that in college and thought I would be, maybe a counselor or something like that.
It's helpful to what you do now.
Right, it was. And then, though, I was like, oh, this medicine thing's kind of interesting. So I kind of diverted paths a little for a short time and went into medicine because science was also interesting, the human body, how it works, all those things, super interesting. So eventually,
she's in medicine. She's an emergency room physician. So I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about that. Number one, I was thinking about this. What years were you at Chandler Regional?
So I'm really dating myself.
Yeah.
No, 2007 is when I started.
Okay.
And then I left in 2021.
So I guarantee I was in your emergency room more than a few times. I had a grade 3 AAC separation that put me in there. Yeah. And then I was back at Chandler Regional because I was in my backyard taking down a tree with a chainsaw, and I opened up the back of my leg with a chainsaw. And I had to go to Chandler Regional where it was the only time in my life I ever taken an ambulance. And I had to take the ambulance because I was kind of fainting from all of the turmoil that was happening around, and they were like, you have to take the ride because you can't get yourself to your own car.
Totally.
So fixed. So
Imagine, yeah.
I came in and you guys had to zip me up
Zip you
there
back up.
in the back of my leg and all of those things. What is it like to be a doctor in the emergency room? And not just a doctor, but kind of the one who's running the show.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed it. For me, it was fun.
The pace.
The fast pace, the adventure, the critical patient that I want to think quickly and I want it to count. I want it to matter. Like, that was so in the flow for me.
Right.
It was like so odd to be in the flow in that chaos, but I really was in the flow.
So in
and
that
I
way,
loved
it's a lot like the movies. I mean, that's the movies portray that, like chaotic, get it done scene, right?
Yeah,
so it's a
it
lot
can
like
be.
that. Okay.
So let's hear a call for like some crazy medicine.
Yeah,
what would you say?
Give me an epi stat.
Yeah.
Do you want to remember? You don't want to hear that. I don't think you want to hear that. Yeah.
Do you remember your last emergency room visit?
I do.
For something significant.
I had a couple broken bones and I had a couple surgeries, but not emergency rooms.
Okay, good.
Emergency rooms were stitches.
Yeah.
And there was hockey. That's a hockey story. I got walloped with that was an emergency room. I got hit with, when I was probably 16, just before juniors, the best guy on the team, a big guy like you, hit me with a slap shot right under my ribs. I was in front of the net trying to
like a
block
liver shot or something?
Like a slap shot from the point. And it was like a bullet. I immediately started vomiting blood, honestly. And so I'll never forget that emergency. I thought I was dying, that one.
What do you think happened to him, Doc?
Yeah, well, he probably bruised something in there.
That's what they said. It was funny. That's all they gave. They're like, he looks fine. My dad was like, really? They're like, yeah, it just really kind of you have blood in your, it knocked the blood out of me, I guess, right?
What comes through the door that kind of gets everybody's attention? Are there certain things that when they come through, you're like, whoa?
Yeah, well, obviously the major trauma, right?
Okay.
Like gunshot wounds, stabbings,
all right,
that will do it. But the
chainsaws,
the chainsaw, or like the ankle that's pointing in the wrong direction, those will get your attention. Or the person clutching his chest that's white as a ghost, pale, sweating, the heart attacks. Yeah, those things they really get your attention.
Is there real quick? While we're on this, is there a story that you recall that like you're gonna remember your whole life?
Oh, I mean, how many of those do you want to hear? No.
I'm sure there's many. Are there a couple maybe that you mind sharing?
I mean, there's a couple. This one actually wasn't mine, but it's like really funny, interesting, and also bizarre. So a guy came from a psychiatric prison unit.
Got it.
And his eyeball is hanging on his cheek. And he actually pulled his own eyeball out of it. Oh. So it's hanging there, and so he's like,
wow, man, that's some commitment.
He's like, can you just put it back in? And the ER tech was like, sir, you're not Mr. Potato Head. You can't just put it back in. This takes time. And I thought that was a nice little thing.
What would you do if somebody eyeball popped out?
As she was saying that, it's like I almost want to. I want to go run and grab that pizza now. I don't want to hear that story. It makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever seen anything like that is, you ever remember the movie Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino? It's the football movie.
Oh yeah.
And there's the scene in the movie where the guys come together really hard and the dude's eyeball pops out and onto the field.
Yeah.
That's what that made me think about. Okay.
Okay. Well,
we can transition on.
That's what I was
not doing this anymore.
I'm not doing that
so that's
anymore.
what I was just saying. Like, I'm hearing all this excitement. I love this and this. So I'm sitting here learning this because her, and I'm like, what happened? Then there's a pivot. Yeah. So what makes this pivot? Yeah. There had to be something.
It was Sandy's eye.
It was my eye. I saw too much.
Was that it? Was that this?
I had seen too much.
The eye that broke the camel's back.
That's it.
Totally.
Well, she could finally see clearly.
Right, totally.
Yeah. So I'm on Steve's question. Is like, what happened?
Yeah. No, I actually started doing my own deep healing work with psychedelic medicine, and in that, feeling this profound healing that was possible, I was like, oh my, I want to offer this to more people. Like, this is actually how I can help more people truly heal from a deep core wound level. I'm not doing that in the ER. I mean, I'm having fun and I am fixing a few bones here and there and, heart attacks, but I'm not really healing people from the core.
Yeah.
And so that's
We've
what I
talked about this in the past, but you're not somebody, you've done some shrooms back in the day or something like that, recreationally. But
in the day or
what?
Which day?
Wait, last week? Or?
You've sampled some things, but have you ever used them in a healing space?
I think I always do in a kind of a way.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of like, I think my gift to doing and being open to do things is that I always know that somehow, some way I'm learning something out of that event and learning about myself or that event. And I've taken that with me. So no, I'm open to all this conversation because there again, like it's interesting because when you go to you become on the healing is the preventative side. I mean, let's call it what it is, which is it is the opposite side. You were in the ER. You're putting things back together, but now you're here. You're trying to fix them before they break, and so it's interesting.
It's actually both.
Or both, yeah.
Right?
They're
it
already,
is both.
Yeah, it is both.
We've already had so many life experiences that create a lot of wounding and a lot of scarring, and so it is healing those, and then leading to the future where you can actually make new choices and you can prevent wounds from making deep, deep scars.
Okay, so why are we having this conversation? Because now she runs inLIGHTen Wellness with a handful of other people, and because ketamine is legal in all 50 states,
Yep.
it's a modality that we can offer to people. And what I find, I like the way that you kind of set up ketamine, and I always like to say to people, as we have this conversation about ketamine and other psychedelics, they aren't for everybody, and there's actually a big demographic of people that should never come close to them, should never touch them, and I'm sure you're going to speak to those kinds of things. But ketamine's really safe. It's been around for a long time. Talk about the application and the history of it.
Yeah, so it was created in the 50s, roughly as an anesthetic to use in the operating room for procedures because it was super safe from a blood pressure, heart rate, breathing standpoint. And so they started using it in the OR, and people were coming out of surgery with less depression. And then they actually used it in the Vietnam War to extricate injured soldiers because it was safer than what they were using. They were coming back with less PTSD. So that then kind of led to the studies of, there's something more to this medicine than just an anesthetic. So they found that at lower doses, you have that psychedelic-like journey, which you then remember at the lower doses rather than the anesthetic doses, which you don't really remember. Probably have a beautiful psychedelic journey, but you have no idea what happened because you don't remember.
That's the thing about to me, the difference between the psychedelics and like other drugs. It's like, I don't ever remember a drunk I could use. That I remember plenty of highs that I could use, right?
Yeah,
Plenty of experiences where I got out of myself, out of my body, out of my mind, and I saw things for the first time in a much clearer or different way. And that's what was so fascinating about it. So what happens with ketamine?
Yeah. So with ketamine, as in most of the psychedelics, you're going to be creating new neural networks.
Okay.
So new neurons, new brain cells. And those brain cells are talking to other brain cells that they weren't talking to before. And then we're also shutting off what we call our default mode network, which is those obsessive, repetitive, ruminating thought patterns that we have. So you're turning those off. So that's biochemically what's happening. But also we're having a journey. We're having, maybe it's a past childhood trauma that you didn't recognize had such a big impact on you, and you see it in a totally different perspective so that you see how it shaped who you are. So in that there is some gratitude, and also you still get to grieve some things within that too. So it's allowing yourself to feel everything that was involved in that memory.
I want to slow her down just a little bit. Because you're a doctor, you can kind of explain that little stuff in the middle that you mentioned, which is about the neural pathways, the new networks. So explain to me in layman's terms how the brain's working, and when we experience things, how that's being wired.
Yeah, so we experience things it's really a biochemical thing, right? So you have these little things called neurotransmitters, which is a little substance that goes from one brain cell to the other brain cell. And so you go down these pathways, and in particular with rumination pathways, it's the same neurons speaking to each other over and over and over.
Slow down even more. What's rumination?
So rumination is thinking about something over and over and over and over and over again, many more overs.
Or is that the DVR that people talk about being replayed over and over? Stop the DVR from replaying.
Yeah, you kind of get stuck in that. I see it as like, say you have a field of snow, and you're going to walk down a path to get from point A to point B. So you start walking down that path, and then every day you go down that path again and again and again, and then you get this really deep rut, and you can't even see that there's anything on the other side of that. So same thing kind of in the brain. So then what ketamine or psychedelics do is it's a blizzard. You wipe over that path. So now you're like, which way do I want to go today? How about I go left today? And then tomorrow, maybe I'll go right. And then there's more snow. And then the next day you go to the center. It's a whole new way of being able to navigate.
Opens some doors.
Opens doors. It opens so many doors.
That's the thing. And I remember, so I did ketamine with Sandy. She was my guide, if you will.
Yep.
And I remember in my intake talking to you, and I said, there's just times in my life where I feel like I'm in a room, and there's like 20 doors, and I just can't seem to open them, or I can't seem to find the one I'm supposed to open. And you kind of were like, well, then let's get you some clarity. Let's see if you can get outside yourself and figure out which door you're supposed to open. Okay, so back to your story. You're in the ketamine session, and what new pathways are being formed?
Okay. So new connections, a new trail. A new trail from one brain cell to the next brain cell to the next brain cell. So now you have a new trail in there that actually means a new thought, a new perspective that you didn't have before, a new way of looking at something, whereas, you're used to looking at something one way because that's the way it was taught to you. And then it becomes comfortable, it becomes familiar, so you stick with that. So this is an opportunity to have this new thought, this new trail to be like, well, that's a different perspective, huh? How did I get the perspective I have to begin with? And how do I see, could this other perspective actually be possible too? So it's kind of just recognizing that maybe not everything I've been told is true.
So as I'm thinking, she's talking, Steve, I'm going, who would benefit from this? Who would be the main person?
That's what I was going to get. Peeling back the onion, the why. Why would I want this? And I guess so. One thing that comes to my mind is, why do people go to anything for help in society? And that's stress, right? And I had that. I wanted to ask you, Sandy, chronic stress, and what that does to the brain, and what would ketamine or these types of treatments do for stress? Because again, what everything, it seems like all the thoughts turn into stress. I mean, it's like it builds up, and then that's we use stress as just a word for everything you just talked.
Right.
So
So life
Chronic.
events happen, right?
Yep.
What happens in our brain is all these life events, we make something more of them than they actually are. So it's our thoughts that make the stress. It's not the events. Events, we all have events in our life. So this is like telling us, oh my gosh, this is too much, I can't handle it. And we tell ourselves over and over again, this is too much, I can't handle it. Well, what if you actually are already handling it? And what if you could navigate it and handle it a different way with a little more peace? So by creating those new neural networks, you're like, oh, okay, I have a new way of looking at this. Maybe there's actually a new way to navigate around it, and maybe I can do something different in my life too that may negate this one stress over here, that this event here, actually I can just get rid of this event. I think it's important, but maybe this event is not even important at all, and I can just let it go.
Right. And what happens if you don't? Again, back to that chronic stress. What can it do? What those ruts? If you keep the ruts never get cleared, what happens?
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah. Physically,
your nervous system is
emotionally, mentally. Yeah, your body feels that too, right? It's heartburn, it's chest pain, it's not sleeping. It's
almost like what they used to call mental breakdown, almost just a general breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
And so my guess is that after somebody has an experience with ketamine, or you offer also shamanic breathwork, which maybe we'll get a chance to talk about here briefly too. But when they have these experiences, I would almost imagine, like I joke about it when people ask me how my ketamine treatment was. I was like, I think I took my heart rate to 0. It was just one of those experiences where it was like, I mean, poor Sandy had to sit there and listen to me sigh for amazing. I don't know however long I was there.
Amazing.
But I just melted into the experience. It was so blissful for me, and in a way, it was really, really, it was healing in that. Like I kind of felt like I turned the volume in my head down a little bit. Does that sound?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
And so back to who could and should benefit from a treatment like this. Obviously, those that are stressed out constantly, but who else?
Totally, yeah. So we have a lot of people suffering from PTSD, so post-traumatic stress symptoms, right? They've had really bad things happen, and those things get stuck within us. So again, we're shutting off that rumination, that repetitive replaying of that event over and over in our head, and we're creating a new perspective around how it has shaped our life and how we can actually shape our life differently now by looking at it in a different lens. And so that's a great patient population that we have. Also, people with anxiety, which is also stress, right? It's kind of the same thing. Stress, anxiety, it's pretty much the same thing.
They're all words that mean the same
exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Depression, people with depression who get stuck in that I'm not good enough loop, or I'd be better off dead, or those suicidal thoughts. Those are beautiful people who really benefit from this type of medicine.
Let's flip that.
Yeah.
Who should not touch it?
Yeah, so the people that are contraindicated with people with psychosis or schizophrenia, as well as someone with predominant or active mania. So those two can make it even worse. So if you can imagine you're going into a state where reality is kind of questioned for your time while you're in a ketamine journey, someone who lives in that at baseline, you could potentiate that and make that worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
We only have a couple of minutes left with her. Is there anything else on the table for you? Because I have a couple of more things I want to ask her.
Well, again, like that leaving with, stories that...
All right, let's get to that in a minute, because this will take us there, and then we'll go.
Then you go there.
You offer shamanic breathwork. I have done there.
Yeah.
I think Lena is so cool.
She's
I just
amazing.
love her energy.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's such a powerhouse.
Yeah.
The breathwork can accomplish some things
Absolutely.
differently than the medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Speak to the shamanic breathwork just a bit.
Yeah. Shamanic breathwork hyperoxygenates our brain to a place where it typically isn't. And so in that, you can have what we call non-ordinary state of consciousness, which is what psychedelics do as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that, you can actually see visions. You can have a psychedelic-like journey in that space. And even more so, you can release a lot of things that you've been holding on to. In ketamine as well. In shamanic breathwork, it's like so powerful because we also do this amazing scream where we just like let it all out. And so we really let you get into your body and recognizing that it's your breath that is doing this. It is your God-given right, this thing that we have, our lungs, to breathe into a space where we can get into a place where we can heal.
So where does the name come from? What does that mean? Shaman?
Yeah, so shamanic is just going into the shadow. The shadow are the parts of us that we don't want to look at, that we haven't looked at, or that we didn't know we could look at. And so they're just parts that aren't visible to our conscious mind most of the time.
Interesting. Love that.
I would encourage anybody listening, because here's how I think this goes. You're listening to this and you're kind of like, that sounds interesting.
Intrigued.
To me, she will say the same thing. That's the medicine calling you, right?
Totally.
That's the experience calling you. So if you feel compelled, I would encourage everybody. And listen, there's energy facials, there's Reiki sessions, there's shamanic breathwork, and then there's the big dog, ketamine, and that kind of walks us right to Steve's question, which is...
My question is the transformation. Can you share a story that you really, somebody was really in that we described, that crevice?
Yeah,
deep crevice, and just come out like the other side.
Totally, yeah. I had just a beautiful gentleman who had, PTS symptoms really significant from his career in law enforcement. And in that, he couldn't even get out of his house. Like, he was so anxious.
Wow.
He couldn't leave. He had a dog that would go everywhere with him when he did leave. Like, he couldn't leave the house without this dog. He would have to drink alcohol in order to go to the bar so that he could talk to people because he was so anxious.
Wow.
He had tremors that were so bad he could hardly pick anything up. Literally, his first ketamine session, he let go of so much of that trauma that when he came out, he was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just lifted this weight off of my chest and I feel 10 pounds lighter. He goes everywhere now. He doesn't have to drink alcohol. He can make phone calls on the phone. He went to his neurologist, and his neurologist is like, where did your tremor go? He's like, I know, it's not here anymore. He's like, what have you been doing? Ketamine.
So how long was that?
Amazing.
How long of treatment? So how long did you
He's
do this
done
treatment
5
for?
treatments. He didn't even finish his 6th yet because he's doing so well.
That's super encouraging, especially for people listening. That it's not, it's not. You're not going to rope people in for. It's not like years and years.
No.
It's this is something maybe more like weeks or months type of thing, right?
Totally. Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll link to her center in our show notes again, man. Such a great staff. I mean, Carrie, Lena, Travis, everybody. This is the sentence I wrote down. I said, Carrie, Lena, Travis, and your team are the shit.
Yes, I love it.
They are.
They are.
There's a lot of cool stuff happening there, and it's absolutely worth your time to invest a little bit of energy in just looking into it.
Yes,
and seeing what it's all about. Where are you located?
We're at Raintree in the 101 in Scottsdale, right off the highway.
Yeah.
Perfect, easy to get to.
Doctor, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Matthew.
Dr. Sandy.
Thank you,
It's
Steve.
a pleasure.
And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to sit down with Janine Hernandez. We're going to talk
Exciting.
about books, right? Have you ever thought about publishing a book? Have you ever thought about telling your story? She's somebody who helps others get that accomplished and across the finish line. And not just across the finish line, but she helps people become best-selling authors. She is as well. We'll talk about her latest book, and then we're going to finally wrap up with Romy Wightman today, who has a foundation where when the you-know-what hits the fan in terms of medical bills, and you know firsthand about those things, especially ER bills, her foundation steps in to help people out with that. So don't go anywhere. Hang out, and we'll be right back.
Buying or selling a home is one of the most important decisions you're going to make, so you deserve someone who truly cares about your journey. I'm Amy Richardson with the Savvy Realty Group and HomeSmart. Living and raising my family in Ahwatukee for nearly 20 years, this community isn't just where I work, it's my home. Growing up in the Midwest, I learned early the importance of connections and relationships. These values shape everything I do. From our initial conversation to long after you've settled into your new home, I'm here to provide ongoing support and guidance. From staging to cutting-edge marketing strategies, we expertly showcase your home to sell swiftly for the highest possible price. So if you're ready to buy or sell, please reach out to me. And remember, important decisions require savvy solutions.
Welcome back. It's time for more Move the Needle here live from Craft 64 up in Scottsdale.
Exciting.
Best pizza ever according to Barstool Sports.
Yeah. Talk to Dave about it. He gave it like, he said it was like the best.
Really?
I mean,
Is
absolutely.
Dave from Barstool Sports?
Dave
Oh,
is the
okay.
man. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Our next guest is a #1 best-selling author, speaker, and book coach. She's interviewed nationally on TV and radio. I have had the pleasure of working firsthand with Janine. Actually, I should say I've had the pleasure of giving her a massive headache. I probably was one of the most difficult people she's ever had to work with in terms of book publishing. But, you know, this is what she's good at. She's good at helping people that have that story get it on the pages so that other people can read it. She's written several best-selling books herself. Her latest is called Calling Forth the Waves, which we're going to talk about in just a couple of minutes. Okay. So, Steve, say hello to my friend Janine Hernandez.
Hello, Janine Hernandez. I'm so excited to meet you.
Hi, guys. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, this is awesome. So, let's start at the very beginning. How did this book publishing business for you start? Because that's how you and I met.
I got started by publishing my own book, and then everybody would reach out to me and say, well, how can I do that? And then that's how it got started. I started doing one-to-one coaching, and that became a lot. So I shifted to group coaching, and during the pandemic, when everyone was home and bored, my business went into business, and we were publishing a lot of books.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Is the book publishing experience, and I mean, I know the answer to this because we work together, but is it daunting? Is it really as hard as people make it out to be, or did I just make it incredibly difficult on myself?
I think you made it. No, I'm just kidding. It is hard. It is hard, but that's why I am a coach, and I help people, and I ask them questions to get their thoughts going, you know, and once you have an outline of what you want to write about, it's not that hard.
Okay. Have you ever thought about writing a book, Steve? I don't think it's for everybody, so maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe at the end of the road. My dad did. He was all excited about it. We were proud of him. He did pretty well. He went through it, and so I know what you guys, you know, it's something there's got to be a passion behind it. So to answer your question, you're right. I don't have that passion like others, and I've seen it close up to do that.
Yeah,
maybe someday.
What I've decided, Janine, is I'm Elton John, and I need my Bernie. Like, I need a ghostwriter who can help me get across the finish line. Because
I can do that.
You ghostwrite?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay. Here
Anyway,
you go.
Because I'm somebody who's got 50,000 words down on something. And I need somebody to come in and make heads or tails of it, right? And make sense of it. And you're saying you offer these kinds of services for other people too.
Yes.
What does it look like? Because I think I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who've I don't know. I've written down some thoughts about a book.
Yeah, I know a lot of people might have the ideas or they've jotted down some things. And so to ghostwrite, it really is just sitting with me and we're having an interview like this. And I will just ask you questions and allow you to just dump it all on me. And then I'll take what we recorded and then I start to write. And it takes a couple months. We might actually do a couple of those meetings, 6 or 7 of them. And then we craft the book.
Do you help with movie scripts? Same type of thing?
No, that's
you haven't?
Completely different.
Is it different?
Yeah, I'm not trying to mess with movies or scripts.
Yeah, it sounds like you're 1 degree away. If you're able to draw that stuff out of people, that's the magic. I mean, to me, at least, that's what I see. That was the first thing I thought. I'm like, I wonder if she's working with people doing movie scripts, because it's writing. I mean, it's writing comedies, writing. I mean, and a lot of people have or need what you have be that draw out. They have it. They don't know how to pull it from here. I don't know. That would came to me. So
maybe one day. I've done documentaries, so I've scripted documentaries.
So there you go. So I wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
Geez, you guys were.
What would be interesting to learn about books in 2025? Like, I know for me specifically, I don't know about you, Steve, but I don't read books. I listen to books. That's the biggest difference that's my relationship to books. Are you that way, or do you like to read?
Listen.
You like to listen. What is the state of books right now? Where are we with that?
There are still many of us that are highly addicted to physical books. You'd be surprised, the book community, and we will not listen to audiobooks. It's all printed paperback or hardcover. There's a big
My son's
community
one.
for it.
My son's a reader.
Really?
Yeah, I believe that libraries will never go away because there's such a big community of us out there.
Is the middle of the road then like something like the Kindle?
Yeah. I mean, I have a Kindle and I have audio. I have ebooks, but that's because I need a book when I'm at the doctor's office or shopping at the supermarket. I just like to have something with me, but yeah.
What is the state of, you mentioned that it's kind of busy right now, or there's still a lot of people out there buying books. Are book sales up, down in the history of books? Where are we at right now?
They're up, and I actually read this week that they're opening up more Barnes & Noble stores because the community on TikTok has blown it up. There's so many people buying more
they were
books.
closing them down during
yeah,
COVID,
no,
right?
they're opening up more bookstores. So yeah, it's like not going anywhere.
Interesting. Did you read books as a kid?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got hooked as a young person.
Yeah.
And then that made you go like, maybe one day I want to do this. Tell us about the first book you ever penned.
I started writing my first book when I was 9. And since I was 9, I would tell my parents, I'm going to grow up and be an author. That's what I would say. It was never doctor or teacher. It was always author. And everyone would look at me all weird, like, okay. And then here we are.
Wow. And how many books have you written?
9.
9.
Yeah, working on the 10th.
The latest one is called Calling Forth the Waves. And we're going to pivot here and maybe potentially a little bit of a trigger warning for people. The book deals with domestic violence.
Yes.
And it deals with Janine's firsthand experience with domestic violence. Was it difficult for you to put that experience on paper? Because in a lot of ways you have to relive those moments and you have to go through them. Or was it healing? And was that part of the therapy?
Oh, that was a part of the therapy. And what I did was, thank God I journal every single day. So I went through my journals. That was hard, having to read what I wrote. But it allowed me to get a timeline of what happened, how it happened, and to realize, like, I'm not crazy. I really did go through this. But it was therapeutic to write the book. It was hard, though. I did write for a little bit and then put it down for a couple months, but finally finished it.
Yeah. Is it something that you would encourage other people to do that have had some really difficult experience? Like, what did you learn about yourself in the writing of that book?
I realized that there's a lot of people that go through things like this and don't talk about it. So I do recommend that you speak about it or that you write it in a book. For me, too, it was the legacy for my child. I want to make sure that he knows what happened to me and then his children do, too, so that those generational curses don't continue in our family line.
Okay, so what did you learn about yourself when you went through the book experience?
I learned that there's a lot of stuff in my family that I didn't know before. So I had to dig into childhood trauma. I had to dig into our family tree, understand why I am the way that I am, why I accepted certain things, why I attracted certain people. It was very revealing to go through that.
It's kind of like what Dr. Sandy was just talking about, right? Like she's describing the pathways that were set up in her in childhood and probably why you found yourselves in similar situations. And is that kind of unlocking you're talking about?
Oh yeah, and it was a beautiful journey. It was interesting but beautiful at the same time. And that's what I mean by leaving that in a book for my child. Like, and I've talked to him about everything that I learned through this process, but it's like the information that he'll need as he grows older, and his children too.
Yeah. Okay. Steve, fire away, man.
Back to being out. So amazing that you've been able to, deal with that, come back, and didn't know that much about that piece of it. So it's amazing. So what's a common misconception that people have coming to you about writing a book? Maybe is there a misconception they have one way or the other about the what they need to do, what they have to accomplish? Is there anything to do with that?
I think a lot of people think that it's easy and that it's overnight success. Like, I published a book and I'm going to sell 10,000 books in one day. And I have to keep reminding people that it's repetitive action, and you have to be consistent, and you have to show up every day, and you got to do the lives and show up even if there's one person in the audience. A lot of people give up after a week or two. And so...
I got you. That makes sense.
How are people selling books? I want to kind of keep going down this road. How are people selling books now? What does that look like? Because I just think of the traditional, book signings at a Barnes & Noble and that kind of thing. What's happening now? Because imagine Amazon's is a huge player in this space. Audible, obviously, they're owned by each other. How are people moving product?
So definitely a lot of organic. I do a lot of organic stuff on social media. I'm posting every day, multiple times a day about my books. But honestly, Facebook ads is a great one. And then TikTok will get your book sold.
Really?
The TikTok shop, yeah. Or just being on TikTok. And like me talking about DV is a big topic. So many people want to buy my books or hire me to speak just because I'm talking about it.
Huh. It makes perfect sense. So give me your strategy on TikTok. What are you doing that other people might steal and use for themselves?
Oh, I just talk. I'm vulnerable. I'll share my thoughts. I'll read a chapter. I will go live and have conversations with other survivors. And then obviously I'll show my book and tell them where they can find it. But it's honestly just being open and honest and raw, having uncomfortable conversations, sharing certain things, educating people. And then those videos blow up on social media. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question about like book sales and stuff? It's like, what does the average book cost these days? Like, I'm on ebooks, and I think, again, I'm on Audible, and so I use the credits that I get through Amazon, and so I don't even know how much a book costs anymore. What is a hard copy of a book run these days?
Like $24.99.
24.
Yeah.
Okay, and an ebook, if I'm not mistaken, a little less than that, maybe like $17-$18
or less. I sell mine for like $9.
$9. So how can people make money with these book sales? Like, is it like music where the publisher gets X amount of dollars, the author gets X amount of dollars, the distributor gets X amount of dollars? How does it work?
So if you're doing self-publishing, which is what I teach, you're getting most of the income, but you do have to give Amazon and KDP their split. So there's that. But honestly, getting yourself booked for, like how you said, book signings, speaking at schools, speaking at corporations, like going in and as a speaker, that gets you to sell more books because they'll purchase them. Yeah.
That is the model. As a speaker, I know this is one of the reasons that I wrote a little short ebook called How to Talk to People You Don't Like Talking to, and you were nice enough to read it and actually say that you got something from it. But I learned that as a speaker, that's one of the things you can do when you go into a corporation. You can say, hey, look, I'm $10,000 to bring it in, but if you just skip my fee, just buy a copy of my book for every one of your employees.
Yeah. Yes.
And then that goes to the book sales, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
All right. These are good things. All right, Steve, jump in. I know you've got some more stuff you want to know.
So you, with all this, I've learned from you. If you can go back for our audience, if you go back to your younger self and give a piece of advice that you'd want to share from that DV piece to the publishing, what piece of advice would you give?
Wow.
I would do nothing differently.
I always sense that from you.
Yeah, because I used to think, I wish I would have started publishing my book sooner, but I needed to go through a 10-year period of pain and all of the ththings that I went through so that I could write these books and I could educate people. I would change nothing.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's such a refreshing answer.
Yeah, I do. Honestly, before I lobbed it over there, as I was thinking of her last answer, I'm like, she's got her stuff together. I'm like,
what advice would you give younger Steve?
What advice would I give? Probably a lot. I haven't thought much about it, but I probably would give myself just maybe a little bit more, patience. But like Janine, I think my path has been pretty clear. I have not been very directionless. So it would be more in the light of more personal reflection, being more patient, with relationships being, stuff I've learned over time. I don't know if I would, I think I was a little bit, reckless when I was younger. So the big piece of advice would be like, So some of that stuff. But this answer, since you're an author, and I'm sure you said you're a fan of books, you've been to books. She's going to have a give an answer of this one I brought. Okay, if you could sit down with any famous author and sit down with them and have lunch, who would it be?
I've always been a fan of V.C. Andrews. Those were the books that I used to read when I was 10.
Okay.
And so I would sit with her. I don't know. There's just something about the books when you were little. It just sparks up that inner child.
That's the answer. She said that was without hesitation.
So V.C. Andrews has written, I'm sure, countless books.
Yeah, and it's like series. And I just remember, I was obsessed with them when I was little, and I would read them over and over, and yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll happen. You never know.
Yeah, one day.
Is she still alive?
I'm not sure.
that would be number
V.C.
one.
Andrews. Let's find out if we're still around or not. What is your preferred method of writing the book? Are you on your laptop? Are you handwriting some stuff? What do you like to do?
You want me to give out my secret?
I do, because I think it'll help other people.
I drive a lot. I have to go pick up my son. I do this, that. I do voice to text on my phone while I'm driving.
So you know who else does that? Matthew McConaughey. That's how he's written all of his books. He takes these 3-week excursions, and he has a mic rigged up in his RV/truck, and he just talks into it.
Yeah, I just talk.
Yeah, and then that's how you write your books.
Yep. So I'll have a 45-minute stretch. I'll write a chapter. I'll say a chapter while I'm driving, and then I will type it up. I'll fix it up later.
Okay. As we wind down with Janine Hernandez, I want to tell you where you can go find her and all of those things. We'll do that in a minute. But I think my problem when I was writing my book was I overthought it, and I wanted it to be perfect. And that stopped me from getting it across the finish line. Speak to that.
That's the worst thing you can do, mistake you can do. I always say just free write. Just write and figure out how to fix it later. Do not go back and fix it and perfect it, because I did that and it took me 17 years. That book, when I was 9 years old, it took me 17 years to publish because I wanted it to be perfect.
Okay.
So just write and let the editor fix it later.
Okay, so the editor takes care. Where do I find editors?
Me.
Yeah, and there it is.
Hello.
See it? I'm walking it right to.
Answer. She's got it all.
She's ready. What's the best point of entry for somebody who's listening to us and they're like, dang, I want to work with her. I want to write a book. How do I get started? Where do you want them to go?
You can go to my website, bookpublishingacademy.org, or find me on Instagram.
Bad news. V.C. Andrews is no longer with us. You will not be able to sit down with
No
V.C.
lunch? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very spiritual, so I'll just talk to her.
Yeah, there you go. So
answer.
You can go to lunch with her.
Just
think of those.
So the best way to find you is what again?
Instagram, Janine Hernandez _ or Book Publishing Academy. I am online all day long.
All day.
All day.
All right. We'll link to everything in our show notes. Janine Hernandez, so great to podcast with you.
Thank you.
We actually
So
are
nice
working
to meet
on
you.
doing a podcast at a domestic violence shelter together.
Ooh.
About her new book, which I can't wait for, and I'm
wait.
putting it out in the world because I know it would be so powerful for other people to hear your story.
Love that.
I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to sit down with Romy, and you are going to learn so much about her foundation, why she started it, who she helps out. So listen, you got a big, gigantic medical bill sitting out there? Keep listening, okay?
Yes.
All right, we're back for part 3 of Move the Needle from Craft 64 right after this.
Hi, I'm Kim Selchin, owner of Tutor Doctor of Ahwatukee, Chandler, and Gilbert. We understand every student is unique, which is why we meet them where they feel most at ease, whether online, at home, or in a public space. Our academic coaching is designed to help even the brightest students overcome organizational challenges, sharpen study skills, and build confidence, empowering them to achieve their best. From kindergarten to adult, we believe every student can be successful. We also have expert SAT and ACT coaches to help teens with college admissions and scholarships. I'm excited to learn how we can partner with your family to help today's learners become tomorrow's successful adults.
We're back for segment 3 of our Move the Needle podcast. We're at Craft 64. Thanks again to the folks who help us get into this space and use it and smell their pizza. I'm excited about this next segment, Steve, because Romy and I, we go back. Actually, there's a former guest. Actually, the last time we were up here at Craft 64, we had a woman on the show named Jill McMahon.
Sure.
Jill McMahon is on the board of the White House Foundation, which Romy founded and runs, and I know we're going to learn a little bit about that. But first up, hey, welcome.
Hey.
How's your day?
I've had somewhat of a crazy day.
What happened?
I'm coming from 6 hours of straight leadership meetings to you.
Okay.
So you guys
What did you learn?
You guys
Hold
are
on.
a lot more fun than my virtual 6-hour sales leadership meeting.
What did you learn that you can pass along to us?
Well, what I did learn is that what we should be doing is tracking during our day all of those things that we say yes to that are just time wasters, and write down how much time we are spending doing things that aren't leading us anywhere, and figure out what we could do with that time that is going to get us closer to our goals. I will tell you, I took that very much to heart. I'm going to do that.
I had a guy that I listened to. He was talking about leadership one time, and he was talking about the people who say yes to a million things, right? And the example that he gave was he was working with a client, and this client was coming to him because he was like, I'm overwhelmed. I have too many things on my plate, da-da-da-da-da-da. And so the advice he gave him, he said, the next time you go to your next meeting, I want you to sit down in that meeting. I want you to zip it. You don't talk. You don't say anything. And within a few weeks, this guy's list went from like 30 things to like 3 or 4 things. And what he would instead, he'd stop being like, oh, I'll do that, or I'll take care of that, or no problem, I got that. And we all do this. And he would just wait for somebody to say, hey, Todd, how about you take the lead on that? And he'd say, okay, got it. And he would write it down. And because of that, he was able to go from 30 to 3 things very, very quickly. So I think that's probably sound advice.
I agree.
Okay, cool.
I'll report back.
Where do you want to start? How do you want to start your story? I mean, there's so many interesting angles to it. You've had a bout with cancer that I know changed how you see the world dramatically. You created the White Horse Foundation, which helps people in their medical bills space. So you tell me where what's the first door we should walk through?
So there's something that's been really heavy on my mind since Steve contacted me on Monday. So for those of you that don't know what White Horse does, is we really advocate for any patients, not just cancer patients, with high medical debt. And we help them weave their way through the insurance system that each year just seems to get more complicated and frustrating. And coincidentally, my day job is in this industry. And so after 5 years of being a cancer patient, I myself was stuck in the middle of this nightmare of a 6-figure hospital bill, trying to send kids to college. The whole thing was so difficult. And from a headspace, when you're trying to stay alive, and then you have people from collections calling you, it's just a weird dichotomy. Somebody is calling you, you can tell they're eating dinner while they're trying to get money, and you're just like, you don't get it. So somebody had said to me, in order to really close the circle on this journey, you need to take what you've learned and help other people. And so that was how White Horse originally was founded. So back to the story that's been heavy on my mind. A couple of years after I started White Horse, we had a nomination of a young girl that was friends with one of my daughter's sorority sisters at U of A. She was 22, and she was diagnosed with some sort of a brain tumor. And I communicated with her regularly. She was so sharp and so on the ball and so impressed. I'd never met a 22-year-old that could weave her way through all of this stuff the way that she could. And I hadn't heard from her since June. So we had had this 2-year relationship, and I get an email. It must have been Tuesday morning, and it was from her dad. And he said, I am so glad I found you. And he said, Emily has had a really, really difficult 7 months. And we're trying to get her transferred from one facility to another. We're having all kinds of problems coordinating the care. And I'm getting hounded by this collection agency. Can you please just take this off my plate? I can't focus. And if I get another bill from a collection agency when my daughter is probably not going to live another month, he said, I'm going to blow. Yeah. I'm just going to blow. And I've never met this man. He must have been scouring through her emails to get my information. And so now him and I in the last couple of days have been going tackling back and forth. Yeah. But the day after that, he said, I did finally get her transferred. And he said, thank you so much for helping me. I'm going to need more of your help in the days to come. He said, but I had one job, and that job was to keep my daughter safe. And I have failed. She's not going to make it. And I just crumbled. I just absolutely crumbled. And I responded, and now I've created a relationship with him. But just that small act of me taking one tiny thing away from him that he didn't have to worry about, I think he could relate to me.
Well, you gave him some space to do kind of what he needed to do.
Right.
And what he wanted to do, which is just be mentally there for his daughter.
Right.
I just had this Mohs surgery done on my ear 7 weeks ago. And this is the like, to kind of drive your point home about how much it can just take over the situation. I'm sitting in the thing, and it was like, 1 pass, 2 pass, 3 pass, 4 pass, 6, 7. We go through 7 passes on this thing. And in my head, I'm getting more and more stressed out because I'm thinking, okay, that's another billing code. Oh, that's another billing code. Yeah. Oh, that's another billing code.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, and like, what a stupid thing to be thinking about in the moment.
I know.
All I needed to be thinking about was, all right, they're taking care of this. Everything's going to be okay. But instead, I was completely consumed by how much this stupid surgery was going to cost.
Right.
And it like ruined it for me. Not that it was that pleasurable to begin with, but this is the thing that the healthcare industry has created for us. And what is the way out? Because obviously, we just had Dr. Sandy on in the beginning. Of course, man, if she takes care of me like she's due her money.
Right.
But what is the balance, and how do we work this out?
It has gotten so far out of hand that I honestly don't know a way back. So I feel like if I can do just a little part, and if you can do a little part, and if you can do a little part, that's the best that we can do until somebody is brave enough to go through that hard work of dismantling it and starting again.
Which they might be doing. I mean, there was some news today. I mean, I don't know, there might be an overhaul of the healthcare system coming up.
There has to be.
Well, it sounds like it's happening. They basically brought in, they confirmed today in the United States. Well, now it's fact that RFK was confirmed as the health secretary. Now,
does he want to go to war with the healthcare industry? Because I don't care who it is. I want somebody to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, it was funny that he had almost. I just watched it from afar. I don't really get into the politics of it all. I just, who's he? I just knew he's been an ambassador for our kids are obese. We got all these problems. That's how I know him. He's been a health advocate. But anyways, they've got him through in coincidentally, some people that the detractors from him were saying that he wanted to unravel the systems too much, and I think that's why he ended up getting obviously getting confirmed. But I think most Americans feel like that. Like, yeah, it needs to like start over again. Like, I mean, whoever does it, I don't care who the person is. Right. It's like it's almost the definition of what they say insanity. Like you just said, like you're involved in it, it, and it's like I just have to tell people how to just tread water. Basically, that's what you're saying.
There's too many hands in the pot when it comes to where the money is going. There's too many hands in the pot, I think. And one thing that I think is encouraging is I hear more and more and more about metabolic health and preventive and really let's try and stay healthy. And then the healthcare system can't profit from everybody that's sick. So why don't we start there? It seems logical.
So Dr. Robert Todd Hurst, who we've had on this podcast, you know him, I know him, he's my cardiologist. He will tell you, as a guy who went through all the big systems, he worked for Mayo for years, worked for Banner for years, he's the first one to say, yo, there's $4 trillion to be made in sick people.
Yes.
So we got to keep people sick because that's how we keep the money rolling. So, and he's completely flipped his model to what you just mentioned.
Right.
Now it's about preventative medicine, holistic care. What can I do? What can I do to make sure that I stay healthy the longest so that I don't feed into the system? Because once you feed into the system, it's hard.
Well,
It's
I mean,
very hard.
They were talking about it a little bit. I heard that again, like I was just listening a little bit today about the confirmation. They really said the seed that it's really stems from. There's a few things. Obesity, like our kids and adults are far more obese than they ever were. Okay, so if you start there, that's starting basically sick. So you're starting sick, and then it just. And then things spiral, and then sicknesses come, and then, people get diabetes, and with their diets, and so, if we can go, we've got to go back and start rethinking our nutrition system. Who wants? A bunch of sick kids. They were talking about in the range of like 45%. Some ridiculous. That's
well, and all the things are increasing. Cancer rates are increasing, right? Heart attacks, all this other heart disease, that stuff's all increasing as a result of just the way that we live our life. And so, you personally went through this journey with cancer. What was your journey like with the medical bills?
Oh. We don't have enough time.
You got to chuckle out of that one, huh?
To even.
How did you crawl? When did you get to a point where you're like, okay, I got a handle on this?
So, I want to say it was around year 2.
Okay.
Where I couldn't bury my head in the sand anymore. And so I really, mustered up the energy to try and organize all of these bills, put them in piles, make payment arrangements, negotiate things. And it was around the 5-year mark that I would say that I finally had it to a point where I was comfortable. But even today, because I have not had treatment for cancer. So I had stage 4 cancer that metastasized 6 or 7 times. But in the last 6.5 years, I've been clear. Wow. So I do still go to the doctor. I do still get scanned. So I do still rack up bills. But another thing that I find so interesting, the oncologists, the surgeons, the whole team, the last time I went, he said, I need to study your DNA. I need to study your cell tumor. I don't understand why you lived and nobody else did. And he's looking through his paperwork, and I said, well, maybe I should tell you a couple of the other things that I did that was outside of standard of care. And he stopped, and he looked at me. He looked at me like I had 10 heads. And I started to laugh because I was uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And he goes back to I go, you know what? You can study all you want. Take all of the old tumors and you study away. I said, but I will tell you, I did a lot of therapy and I got divorced in the middle of this. And I got to tell you, the cancer just stopped. So I don't.
I know this is
coincidence.
You and I have talked about.
We've talked about it
on my podcast, and this was a very, I don't know. I want to be careful about how much I say. I lost my best friend this past year to cancer.
Yeah.
And he was actually had it for years, and he was actually in remission. And when he went into remission is when he got out of a toxic relationship. When he got back into the relationship. Guess what came back?
Yeah.
And so that's a truth. Here's another question that's worth asking is, because you work in this industry, what are things that you know that other people don't know? Because I'm guessing there are a few things that most people just miss because they don't know any better.
Okay.
What kind of rights do we have? What kind of things do we have the ability to say and do for ourselves? How can we be an advocate for ourselves?
So this is very, very common, and it happens a lot. So pre-authorization. So anytime you go get an MRI or a CAT scan or a surgery, that doctor has to pre-authorize that with the insurance company and get it approved in advance. So it in most instances, it comes through like AI. So if the doctor's notes don't match exactly what's coming through on the other side, it's going to kick it out and deny it. So an example, I became allergic to the contrast dye in CT machines a couple of years ago. So I have to do a PET scan. So it comes through and AI doesn't understand there's an allergy. So why would I need a PET scan? I should get a CAT scan because it's cheaper, so it denies it.
It's like a conflict.
Yes, and so it just kicks it out. So then your doctors have to do what's called a peer-to-peer review. And a lot of times, if they're not saying the right words, it's going to get kicked out. Most people will just go and pay for whatever it is that they need, because at this point now you're frustrated. Usually your treatment has been delayed. And what you have to do is you have to appeal it, or you have to call the doctor and say, this is exactly what you need to write down. They are not understanding it's due to an allergy. Now, who's going to know that?
It's all coding, right? There's something medical coding stuff. Medical language.
It's language.
Yeah, language.
And the part that breaks my heart is it's like if I went to a car dealership and I had to order a part, I wouldn't know the language to order it. So the regular person that doesn't do this day in and day out, they can't call their doctor and say, I'm going to tell you exactly how to write this and how to say this so that it gets approved.
I mean, what a shit show. And I'm sorry to use the language, but it is. Because you think about the doctor. He's so busy seeing 20 patients a day just so he can keep the lights on. And now he's got to stop. He's got to do this peer-to-peer review thing. He's got to do more work on his end just so he can get paid or she can get paid. And it's a gigantic pain in the ass. So maybe this is one example where AI sucks in the space. I'm sure it's helpful for some of these things, but there's a lot of really good people who have a treatment they need and they aren't getting it because it's not covered. Well, and be paid for. I don't know. Do I have that right?
I don't think healthcare is standard. Your situation is not going to be the same as mine.
That's it.
It's
all
individual.
Unique. Unique situations.
Plus, you're dealing with multiple insurance companies, so it's usually not the doctor's fault. The doctor doesn't know the rules of United Healthcare and then know the rules of Aetna. It's just crazy town.
Oh my God! Is there anything else that you can think of that you see a lot where people have an opportunity to advocate for themselves, but they just don't know what to say or what to do?
All the time.
Okay.
I still think that many people, whatever their doctor says, they're going to defer to that, because the fear then becomes, if I don't listen to my doctor and I do my own thing and it goes poorly, then you have that guilt. But I think second opinions, I think for anything serious, you have to get a second opinion, and a doctor should welcome that. I think you should.
If they don't, they're probably not.
Exactly.
Right.
And sometimes a third. I had a medical issue. I think I went through 4 doctors. I think the 5th doctor, actually, maybe 5, that figured it out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, so some people just don't. It's just the way the world is. So, yeah, I went through a few with an issue.
Okay, so thank you. This is good, right? Yes. We've learned a few things here today. I'll tell you one of the things that I've done, because this is how whacked out it's gotten. I went to see a podiatrist 6 months ago. I learned I had this thing on the bottom of my foot called like a something wart, which is like a little worm, and it was like a really painful part of my leg. And I called up and I said, "Hey, I need this appointment." It was a seed wart. That was what it was called. I'd never even heard of it.
I haven't
before.
heard of that.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
If you're listening to us right now and the outside ball of your foot, like, you can't even put pressure on it because it hurts so much, it's probably a little seed wart. And all they do is they go in and they take a little blade and they scrape it out and it's gone, and you feel better almost immediately.
Is it on the inside or the outside?
On the outside of your foot.
Okay,
yeah, the outside, like by your pinky toe.
Okay, got you. Right? Okay.
So anyways, I called up this podiatrist and I said, I want to come in and I want to do this thing. And she was like, okay, great. They put it through insurance, and it was like $125 copay that I was going to need to make. And the procedure itself was $549. Right?
Okay.
And because I hadn't met any deductibles at the beginning of the year yet, I said, can you do me a favor? What's the cash price if I just pay cash? Mm-hmm. She said, that'd be $220.
It's like...
For the whole thing.
Right.
And so I have had when I go get MRIs, for example, if
Now-
I ever had to get an MRI, I pay cash because it's only like $80.
Yeah, and before they used to not be. Before, if they knew you had insurance, they would not let you go to a cash place. Now they've switched. Now they will let you take.
Is that a legality thing that's simmered down?
No.
It's
I don't believe it is, but I don't believe it's a legality. What? I'm not going to say
There's some
anything.
rule that if you have insurance, you have to use it, kind of a thing.
But I thought they said no. If you want to switch it to cash now, I thought something. I'll check on that.
Right.
You just say, I want the cash price. And the reason the providers like it is because they're getting paid right then
away.
and there.
Yeah.
They're not waiting to get paid.
No coding,
and
no submissions, right.
There's so much in accounts payable in a hospital system that they don't get paid for that we are all subsidizing. But that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up the cash pay.
Right? Such an interesting component. So the White Horse Foundation, you guys have obviously helped a lot of people. I know the answer to this question because you and I have talked before. Money is one of the biggest things that you need. You need folks to donate to the foundation. She has a signature event once a year that you put on to raise money. But who should call the White Horse Foundation and say, you know what, I might need some help here?
So we really separate it into 3 buckets.
Okay.
Number 1 is education. So we help a lot of people that doesn't require us paying a bill, but we'll have people call us and say, I received this bill. Can you look at it? Can you tell me if it's fair? Should I pay it? Should I wait? What should I do? So we do a lot of work like that. And then the second bucket is advocacy, where we know something's not right, but we just have to help them get the bill corrected or the insurance to pay it accurately, or we help them apply for charity care. This is a little known fact that most hospitals are nonprofit hospitals. And if you are a nonprofit hospital, you have to offer a more generous financial assistance than other hospitals. So we've helped multiple people get on charity care. For instance, like a family of 5, you can be at 500% of the poverty level and receive financial assistance. So it's not just for people that are low income.
Yeah.
But nobody knows about it. It's not advertised. So patient advocacy is a big piece. And then the third is financial grants, where we will help people in certain circumstances. I had a recipient that she had a baby. The baby was born with a heart defect and was waiting to get a surgery. And the baby had a feeding tube, and she could not afford to get new tubes every time the baby needed to be fed, so she was washing them and reusing them. And so it came to our attention, and we bought a couple of cases of the tubing so that she could give this baby
Good
people.
Small, such a small
I know.
thing makes such a big difference.
Yeah, that's the gig.
Yeah. So I guess it's on the same thing, but shifting gears a little bit more on your personal note. Obviously, battling cancer. Looking at that uncertainty and learning to face life with that uncertainty and embrace it. What would you share to others facing those type of battles? Any suggestions?
Get a divorce. No, I'm so sorry.
I did so many things other than that.
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
This is going to sound really strange. If you said to me, you can go back 10 years and rewrite your future and rewrite cancer out of it, would you do it? And I would say no.
Interesting.
Because the people I've met, the experiences that have come to me, the things that I've learned, I was meant to get cancer. So I think what I would say to other people facing it is there are so many gems within a really horrible situation that if you can see them, at some point you'll realize, why you were put in that situation. I'm super spiritual. I don't know that everybody is, so I don't think it will resonate with everybody, but I don't think I was ever afraid to die because I felt like I had a plan. And so that was the outlook that I had. We all at some point are going to die, right? And we just don't know when. And so my thought process was, what can I learn from this? Versus what can I be mad about from this?
Because that anger will cause more stress, which causes more problems, which makes it worse.
Well, I think you answered it amazingly. I honestly, if somebody could really, our listeners in the audience, people listening to that's great advice. It's basically like, unfortunately, embrace the journey, and it may be better than you think. I mean, if on the other end of it, and that's the optimistic, the positive side that you said you had the plan. So it sounds like you knew you were getting through it. It was, you just had to get through it. Is that what it was?
Well, no, I never. No,
you didn't know that. Wasn't that much confidence?
I had a lot of people telling me to go get your affairs in order.
Oh,
for
that's
years.
Scary.
Yeah.
But you did grow from it. You've learned from it. I mean, in incredible ways, profound ways.
And I honestly, I met people that I just never would have crossed paths with. And I think it was when I started meeting people that I was just like, you know what? This is kind of cool. I'm like talking to this world-renowned cancer scientist who him and I in high school would not have been friends, let me tell you. I was in the popular clique, and he was definitely he was way smarter than me.
He was in the super
smart class.
He was like really smart.
AP classes.
Yeah. And he also had cancer, and him and I just forged this really, really close friendship.
So cool.
Amazing.
Well, we'll link to Romy in our show notes, and make sure that people know about the foundation so that they can reach out for education, advocacy, grants, all the great stuff that she brings to the table. And thank you.
You're welcome.
You're a great guest.
It's always good seeing you.
Yeah, you're a great guest, and you have so much to offer the world. Her closest friends call her Kitten. And I on the way here, I called Jill and I said, "Hey, I get to sit down with Romy today." She goes, like, "Oh yeah, I call her Kitten because it drives her crazy."
It's Kitten or small fry.
It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you again.
You
it was
too.
great.
Thanks
great
for having
spending time.
me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, Steve, that's it. That's how we call it. Are you sticking around for pizza, or what are you doing?
Of course.
Oh, you are?
I mean, did you smell that blast of garlic as we were tossing? Holy moly!
This place is so hard to sit at and just smell, but that's what makes it the best pizza in the world.
So I love it. So,
all right, buddy.
Yeah, great show.
We'll see everybody on the 26th episode next time here on Move the Needle. Have a great day.
Have a great day.